get to what we're here for. We have Dr. Rigina Thompson, who is our final superintendent candidate. And at this time, Dr. Thompson, we want to give you 3 to 5 minutes to make your introductory remarks.
First of all, I would like to thank Chairman Moss, as well as Vice Chairman. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Is that better? Okay. I would like to thank Chairman Moss, Vice Chairman Obama, Board Member Wooten, Board Member Hauser, and Board Member Miles. It is with great honor to have the opportunity to be able to interview today. I really appreciate the time that is taken forth to be able to provide this opportunity for me. I would like to also thank my support system, my husband, Charles Thompson, my mother, Alice Shipman, my nephew, Kentarius Gray, my Camden family for coming out today as well to support me in my pursuit for superintendency. I'd like to thank also Stacey Williams for escorting me around today to the schools. It was such an honor. I began to think about it, and I wrote down notes. I'm a note taker, as well as the board members, as well as Ms. Williams that took me to lunch today. It was such an honor to be able to sit and be able to discuss and have conversations with each of you that were able to attend. My visits to schools today was really, really, really exciting. I began to further gather my enthusiasm to be a part of, a member of the Selman City School family. I saw parents working and partnering at the elementary schools, students' technical skills through the flowers that were planted here at the high school. I saw an administrator talking and calling students by individual names at the middle school as well. I also saw many things that happened at the elementary school that just really kind of just really enlightened me of the inviting spirit and atmosphere that was there. But I also saw an inviting and warm welcoming atmosphere from every faculty member as well as staff that I visited today. So it was really just an honor to be really in the schools, and I thank you for that opportunity as well. A little bit about me. You're looking at a person whose natural inheritance is to lead. For some, this may sound a little cliche, but in reality, this was not a first career choice for me, especially one that I would have chosen or my high school advisor would have coached me into, but a true destined life cycle that was pushed deep within me by me. This life cycle was pushed so deep within me that I originally chose a different career path for the first 15 years of my career, and that was business. Like many families, we are often reminded of what our true inheritance is. Well, in our family, it is and was no different. Remembering this inheritance was always strong, deep, fortified, and believe me, reverenced on many occasions. Especially when conversations were rich in the essence of our roots and the foundation of the importance of education. This was paramount, and it seemed to seep throughout our lives. My grandmother, who was the strong foundation to our family's existence, ensured that all her children and her children's children and generations to follow went to school. This means that family was pushed to most definitely complete high school and always considered the next level. The pursuit of a higher education was always in her forefront of what she said to us. Her words, even after death, still lay heavily on our hearts. She would often remind us that things could be taken from us, but the knowledge that we gained in our minds could never be taken. So always get as much knowledge, education as possible. It is part of your inheritance. Destiny prevails, and the tapping began in my career. My undergrad college advisor tapped me to become a Ford Scholar, which was for education, not business. My mother, who was an elementary principal, in addition to being a personal and professional mentor to me, was like my grandmother, always reminding us of things. One being that children were constantly changing, and it was our responsibility to figure them out and learn to change with them. She asked me one day while I was inquiring about children's literature, Regina, when did you decide to change your degree? path from business education to elementary education. I told her I really couldn't recall. It just happened, sort of miraculously, as through God. From this path of change, I received a BS in elementary education, where even for my first teaching job during my student teaching experience, I was tapped again for a second time by the district's deputy superintendent to consider teaching for their district. I accepted. 4 years later, I was tapped again within the same district by my principal to apply to be part of a district cohort to return to college and receive my master's in a Grow Your Own leadership program for the district. Tapped again during grad classes by the dean at Stanford University, I was asked to consider coming on board to teach undergraduate courses. Yes, I did accept, and I continued my higher education by receiving an educational specialist degree and a doctoral degree in educational leadership. 3 years later, I was encouraged by many to become a principal, so I did. After 6 years as a principal, my superintendent and a professional, and as well a professional mentor, came to the school, where I led a strong team of wonderful teachers to bring a school from state takeover to one of the top ranking schools of the state. He tapped me again through proposition to consider coming to central office as assistant to the superintendent/deputy to oversee curriculum and instruction and other key departments. This central office tap allowed me to take leaps of faith in my pursuit of happiness, considering and taking positions hundreds of miles away from sweet home Alabama, serving and learning a lot from renowned leaders in their profession. At this point in my career, I knew what I possessed was truly a gift that was to serve and most definitely to lead. Through the push, the awareness, and the tapping of others, my inheritance as a leader was magnified, and I became an educator that has held a variety of leadership roles in this rightful pursuit of happiness. I have served as a teacher, principal, assistant to the superintendent, deputy, director of Title I, curriculum and instruction, transformation specialist, assistant professor, consultant, assistant superintendent, chief of teaching and learning, supervising assistant superintendents, executive directors of schools, and directors, and next to the superintendent of Selma, and hopefully the next superintendent of Selma City Schools, allowing me to come full circle after working in Montgomery and Lowndes County. Why Selma City Schools? It is time to return home. My mother, who has supported me at every cycle of my life, as well as my husband, lives a little over an hour away. And for my husband, as we pursue being empty nesters, he has family close by in Camden, Alabama, and other family members about an hour away as well. Selma brings me home. I stand before you truly claiming my inheritance as an educational leader, serving children and those that serve them for over 22 years, and at the central office level for over 15 years.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I have the first question. What is your concept of the relationship which should exist between the superintendent and the Board of Education? And what would you do to ensure a mutually satisfactory working relationship?
First of all, I believe in the students, staff, parents, and community members that I serve. That's who I am. Inasmuch, I would ensure that the board and I develop a collaborative relationship and partnership together, share the responsibility of educating the students we all serve. By working collaboratively, we will continuously set goals to review and improve student achievement, ensuring all students have what they need to learn to their fullest potential. We will also take on our responsibility, which is very important to us as superintendent, to persistently keep the board informed. That is my goal. I have worked with many school districts where I've had to really set up protocols to make sure that the board was informed in the areas that I oversaw and supervised. We set up systems to whereas if questions were asked or addressed, we made sure that we had a correct timeline to make sure that we addressed those questions in a timely manner. We also oversaw overall the activities in the district while making recommendations concerning the daily operations of the district. I believe strongly that the superintendent and the board represent a unified team working together to develop and provide the best education not just an adequate education, but the best education for the students that we serve. To ensure that a mutually satisfactory working relationship, I will ensure open communication and transparency. That is one thing that I really stand on, is being transparent in everything that I do. I really try to make sure that that is in the forefront of everything I do. I try to develop open communication through continuous yet consistent updates. I will collaboratively develop a communication cycle to keep the board abreast of district operations, understanding that some sudden incidents may occur. And I will have a system to make sure that where in the last district where I served, we had an email protocol. So anytime something happened, and especially if emergency facilities communications will call, like an ambulance or the police, that we had an email system that the board knew immediately. Because we did not want the board to find out through the community or through public venues that something has happened at one of the schools. So we had an email system where we sent something immediately to all board members, letting them know that emergency assistants were at a school or that a child was injured or something like that. I would love to make sure that that was set up in the system. I will also ensure that the board is made aware of such incidents as we begin to move forward about any other type of detrimental correspondence or anything that happens with children as far as the police coming out to being arrested or anything like that that happens, to ensure that the board is notified immediately.
Thank you.
Dr. Thompson, what do you consider to be your greatest strength for this position, and what are your weaknesses?
When I think about the greatest strengths, and what strengths that I really, as far as you're thinking about instructional, in our instructional program or overall? Overall. When I try to determine the strengths of the districts, I would most definitely try to review the data. Data always drives me. I look at the data to see exactly what it is that we're really trying to find and make sure that we handle. Is that the question? I could hardly hear you. I want to make sure.
I think she wants to know your greatest strengths and your weaknesses.
Okay, I understand. Now, I kept hearing strength, but I did not hear exactly what part. My greatest strength is really being able to work with others. That is one of my greatest strengths. When I think about things that I do is building partnerships with others and building teams, and working collaboratively, that is one of my greatest strengths. If you were to check, do references on me, you would be able to talk to anyone. And one thing that I do is build leaders as well. I try my best to make sure that the individuals that are working around me also working to level up. That means that they're working to their greatest expertise, as well as the most highest expectations for the district that I serve, as well as the students that I serve. That is one of my greatest strengths. And one of my weaknesses, well, some may call it a weakness, but I kind of call it a strength, and that's sometimes considered overworking. Some call me a workaholic. I think my husband most of the time does. But I consider that, for some, they do consider that as being a weakness, because sometimes you have to make sure that you stand still and observe the things that are happening around you while you are working on your strengths as well. So I think in some points I have to stop and really reevaluate and pace myself as I'm doing things. But I really like to make sure that I have dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's as I'm really working on projects and things. So sometimes that would be considered a weakness for me.
Given your research of Selma City Schools, what innovative strategies and approaches will you employ to increase student achievement, quality of education, facilities, and effective use of funding? What does this plan look like? What will the proposed outcomes look like for Selma City Schools?
Okay, considering I outlined that. All right, I will address that on the PowerPoint at the end as well. So I'm going to go over just the highlights of it, because I really detailed a plan for that one. And so I want to make sure that I just highlight some of the things that I'm going to cover. But some of the main things that I talked about was some innovative prioritization strategies that will produce measurable outcomes. I will first set up benchmarks or objectives that I will be able to actually monitor my own work. One would be to ensure that schools and constituents support the district's mission, through continuous improvement with a custom focus on increasing student achievement. Another benchmark that would keep me focused, as well as the individuals that serve with me, would be to establish effective communication with school and community stakeholders, as well as increase community involvement. Another benchmark/objective would be to adhere to Board of Education policies and governance, as well as ensure policies are aligned with the district strategic plan. Another objective would be to provide a world-class education for all students through effective curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and as well as to ensure efficiency and effectiveness of human and financial capital. One of the main three things I would do as far as addressing the priorities would be to provide leading and progress monitoring. That's going to be a key. Another would be transparency, communication, and dialogue. And the third would be building collaboration, trust, and respect. And I will elaborate that more when I begin to go over my PowerPoint.
Would you talk to us about your approach to student discipline?
Yes. When I think about student discipline, I really consider I'm more proactive. I do want to make sure that everyone understands that every discipline situation is not handled the same. But you do have to have policies that guide you for foreseeing active incidents that may occur. But I'm really proactive in my policies. I believe in making sure that we establish protocols and have things in place to ensure that the students understand what is expected of them. I want to make sure that students understand as well that when we said that we're consistent in the work that we do not go back and forth, but we follow the policies and we align ourselves to the policies. I believe in setting up systems like PBIS to make sure that students understand that the positive behavior that we expect, that we also will address it in a positive manner. Making sure that we are also addressing it, we're proactive, but we're also taking care of it beforehand, not waiting till these incidents occur, that we already have things in place before the incident occurs so the student would know what would happen prior to coming. That is not I got you, but they would understand exactly what the rules and stipulations are for the actions that they may take, that they will understand that going in. So really, most of the time when the student code of conduct is written, when we rewrite it every year, what we do, we allow the students to be assessed on. So the students will actually understand exactly what they are being held accountable for.
Can you describe your thoughts regarding citizen participation in school matters, and how would you keep the community informed about their schools?
When I think about citizen participation, I feel that any decision making should be collaborative, and we need to make sure that we include them. When we think about participating and ensuring that they're part of the process, I always encourage that through open dialogue, through town hall meetings, at the board meetings, we're making sure that what we're addressing, that it is being addressed in an appropriate manner, that they know that really beforehand, before any initiative goes forward, that we have gotten input from the community, from business members as well, to make sure that it is a collaborative process. Making sure that we, as the board, and the superintendent as a team, has also looked over the initiative going forward before we even take it out. So we're acting as one team as well before we even introduce it to the community. But ensuring that they understand that they do have a voice. Many times at the different schools, we have a box like a suggestion box, that they are able to give suggestions ahead of time of what they see the needs are for their students as well as the school for which their students go to. During that time in the suggestion box, those things are taken at the district office level. And as we begin to plan for the next year and the upcoming initiatives, we do look at those suggestions and align them to what our goals are moving forward. So they end up at the end having a voice. But in the initiative that we have, we had an incident where we were trying to start a new program, a language immersion school. And we were trying to put it inside of a school within a school. And the parents had to be heavily involved in that. And so what we did, we made sure that we had town hall meetings and public meetings and meetings for them to be able to voice their concerns prior to actually publicly announcing what our goals and what our plans were. So they did have a voice at the onset of it, not at the end of the process.
Dr. Thompson, what would you do if the board disagreed with a policy you believe to be educationally sound?
Considering a disagreement, first of all, I try to listen, and that's it, with any disagreement with the board members, the community, faculty, staff, or anyone. I first listen to see exactly why there is a disagreement, exactly what it is. Then I would begin to review the policy. I would ask at that moment to table the policy moving forward. I would research the policy, look at the wording of the policy, ensuring that the wording aligns to exactly what it is that we're trying to do the best in the best interest of students. And then I would research it in alignment to the legislature, because it is key that we understand that policies are written and we formulate policies, but they're outlined at the legislature level to make sure that we're adhering to all laws, all governance. And then I will bring back the research that I find to the board and explain it, either changing it to adhere to what the board's disagreement is, or maybe beliefs are about the policy, or explain exactly why the policy should stand as it is written, hoping that we may can move forward after the research has been done.
Dr. Thompson, what are the elements for an innovative educational program? Also, how would you evaluate such a program?
I wrote several things for that. I will start off just immediately saying that when you think about an innovative program overall, innovation of technology, project-based learning, and those different things, that is part of innovation of what I have adopted and initiated, as well as implemented in the district that I work in. When you think about actually trying to start an innovative program and put an innovative program into place, it is important that we have looked at everything that the district, all the needs of the district. And when I consider that, I have started and initiated several technology one-to-one initiatives. And during that time, it was important that we review the district's overall infrastructure. We could not just start the initiative without actually doing some serious research about what our needs were, where we were, and where we stood. So immediately, when you're talking about trying to do anything innovative, you have to make sure that everything that you have in place will actually adhere to the initiative going forward smoothly. And that's making sure that you plan really well, and you make sure everything is in place. After planning, you would actually work collaboratively with the committees. That means at the district level as well as in the community, to make sure that everything is in place and everyone understands the innovativeness and the change. Because sometimes innovativeness brings about change. And sometimes our community don't really understand it. And when I talk about change, I'm really speaking more so of student-centered learning environments. That is an innovative mode as well. And when I've introduced student-centered learning environments, a lot of times the parents were not used to the students having choice, and so much choice. And so that had to be explained beforehand to make sure that the parents understood and the community understood that you may walk into the classroom and may be really noisy. There may be students all around the room and all over the floor. And they are learning, but they're learning in a different mode. And so we have to make sure that all of those elements are in place as we begin to bring forth innovative ideas. But I'm a strong advocate that innovativeness really helps students to learn at a different level. So it's project-based learning, technology, and all those other components that align to innovativeness. Did I address?
Did you tell us how you would evaluate such a program?
Yes, I evaluate, most of the programs I evaluate, even the technology, we have technology measurement tools where students actually go in and take assessments and see how well they're doing on the technology. And those are technology assessments. For project-based learning, the projects are considered part of the assessment component. At the district level, how we actually monitor and evaluate the process and see if we're moving forward, we utilize the data. The data allows us, most of the time for innovativeness, what we have found, the attendance data was most prominent, because when you begin to introduce innovativeness into a classroom, your attendance improves. Students begin to come to school. They begin to enjoy being a part of the school environment. And so that was one main thing that we looked at to evaluate the program as well as our assessment, and as well as behavior. Their behavior also shifted and changed as well, because now were doing things that were more engaging. They were more excited about what they were doing and their learning process overall. So all of those were evaluation methods that we used to make sure that what we were introducing and implementing was actually working for the betterment of all students.
Given your research of Selma City Schools, what are the top 3 priorities to produce measurable outcomes in student achievement, quality of education, facilities, and effective use of funding? Give us examples of growth you've seen in your experience and some proof points.
I kind of spoke on this a little bit, on the top 3 priorities earlier, Board Member Wooten, and I'll just go over it again and elaborate more during the PowerPoint. But the main innovative things when you talk about innovative priorities, that would be leading and progress monitoring. That is key. Transparency, communication, and dialogue. That's number 2. And number 3 would be building collaboration, trust, and respect. That is another one. When we think about leading and progress monitoring, it is to ensure student achievement through a quality education. There has to be an emphasis on continuous improvement. It is important that the work being done is inspected for expected results. As superintendent, a laser-like focus has to be accomplished. It will be placed on the monitoring results overall. Monitoring systems and efficient planning will be implemented to ensure effective physical management is in place as we begin to plan, as well as being monitored through an upkeep, a renovation schedule to not overexert the budget. One thing that I have found as being chief of teaching and learning, I work right up under the superintendent. And what we found is that when we set up a schedule for the maintenance of buildings as well as the progress of fields, we just did a huge renovation of fields. And the main thing that came up is that it should have been a little cycle where we would not overexert the budget. And so ensuring that all of these things are in place for physical management to ensure that things are done on a schedule, that we actually put maintenance on needs on schedule, and that it painting, the field, upkeep of the fields, upkeep of the buildings, all of that are on a schedule, our annual schedule. And so as our operation team would know exactly when those things need to occur, and then our buildings will always be upkept because they're on a constant schedule. And so that's one main thing that will always happen when you think about progress monitoring and upkeep for the physical management component. When you think about transparency, as far as the second innovative priority for me, it will be throughout the entry phase when I walk into the position. It will be a continuous effort with the Board of Trustees as well as myself to be provided with updates on any information discovered on the progress of the district and the schools. Progress monitoring and transparency is very, very important. People really buy in and be a part of your team when you're transparent with exactly what has happened. I am a transparent leader. I'm a collaborative leader. And that is very important in the direction moving forward. Because building a shared awareness is critical. Student achievement and continuous improvement, transparency is really part and paramount to the decision-making process. We cannot make any decisions in isolation. All decisions need to be made collaboratively. So transparency, communication, and dialogue is very key as far as a main priority for me. The second is building collaboration, trust, and respect. The Board of Trustees, Commissioners, and I as a superintendent must operate as a team, focused on ensuring equity and excellence for all students. That is very important to ensure measurable outcomes in student achievement, quality education, facilities, as well as effective use of funding. The board and I will develop a scheduled protocol that's going to be important for delivering and receiving information. This process will be collaboratively built, and it will also build relationships within as well as external relationships as well. It will also set priorities of exactly what needs to happen in the district overall, because we'll be constantly communicating and discussing the needs of the district and the needs of our schools. We will also discuss governance at a continuous basis, making sure that we're always on the same page and doing things together as a team. The details of the entry plan that I will present will also detail this a little bit more.
Dr. Thompson, what do you see as the superintendent's role in budgeting and fiscal management when it comes to the board, the administrative staff, and the faculty?
I consider them to be one of the key factors for making sure that they oversee the development of the budget, that they also oversee the management of the budget to make sure that the needs of the students are at the forefront. The budget is set up really to guide and for schools for teaching and learning. And when we think about that, all things have to align to teaching and learning. Even when we think about facility, utilizing our capital budget, when we're working on fields and we're working on the renovation of buildings and things like that, we have to ensure that it is an inviting facility for our students to learn. That is key. So we have to make sure that everything that we do is done in order. And the superintendent's role is to oversee the budget and make sure that it aligns to that, and not go off and really do something that does not align with teaching and learning and adhering to the needs of students. As far as the principal, they oversee, they're the chief operating officer of the schools. Their responsibility is the same. The funds that they receive that year, Title I funds, any other funds that they receive are for the students that they serve that year. So it's important as the principals and administrators of schools that they utilize the funds for the students that they serve that year to ensure that students are being served adequately that in the building right at that moment. A lot of times we have students that are in the building that are ESOL, special needs, and those different things. Those students need services immediately. We cannot put off and hold on to the money and not serve those kids. So we have to make sure that even spending the money is done correctly, as well as how they spend it is done correctly. So as the CEO of the building, they are responsible for adhering to how the budget is being spent, how it is being budgeted to align to the students' needs for that current year as well as teachers, faculty, and staff. They receive funding for their classrooms. A lot of times we have to make sure that we monitor that, ensuring that the funds that they're receiving for the classroom is adhering to the students' needs that they have that year, and making sure that the needs are adhering to the instructional process that happens in the classroom at the time. When I was a teacher, I remember having tons and tons of manipulatives. And one year I received funds for my students, and my students could not really utilize the manipulatives because they had to be trained and taught a different way. So sometimes the way we teach students has to change according to the students we're serving. And so we have to make sure that we evaluate the needs of the students that we have in our buildings at that time, and we make sure we spend our funds accordingly to the needs of the students that we're serving.
What are your ideas about parental involvement in bridging the gap between home and school, and what methods do you suggest in accomplishing it?
When you think about home and school, there has been instances where schools really felt that they could operate without it. It is very difficult, very difficult. I served as principal of E.D. Nixon Elementary. It was a school that was that served 3 project areas. It was a high poverty index. I started off having a lot of meetings with my setup for trainings with my parents, my community, with business leaders. And I started off at the beginning having a few parents. And as I began to move forward, I knew I needed their support. I needed them to be able to move the students forward. And so I began to do a lot of research. And in my research, it is paramount that you have quick wins. And a lot of times when you have quick wins, people begin to believe in you. And the faculty begins to believe in you. The community begins to believe in you. The parents begin to believe in you. That when they begin to believe that their students could learn, as well as that the school was really there for the best interests of their students, they came out. And when they came out, the improvement of E.D. Nixon began to improve miraculously because of their involvement, not just in isolation of what was happening with the leadership there and the students. Yes, we got into practice, but it was really the parents' involvement, understanding what we were doing at the school that was paramount. A lot of times in poverty, schools of high poverty, they really think the parents, will not come, but the parents will come. We have to have innovative ways of how we get the parents to be involved to make sure that they understand that we need them in order to take their students to our students and their children to the next level. So I think they're a very, very, very high priority in the education of students.
What is the role of the superintendent in stimulating the faculty toward professional growth and self-improvement? Outline the types of programs you feel would provide adequate professional growth and development for the staff. How do you determine the needs, and can you give us examples of programs you've implemented in the past?
When I think about stimulating the growth for our faculty and staff, it is very important for the superintendent to understand that as teachers, administrators level up as well, our students will also level up. It is very important that they know as you begin to attend professional development, as you go back for higher ed learning, you're going to bring that information back, and guess what? It's going to transfer to the students. And so I feel very strongly that the superintendent has a role in that, and the superintendent has to ensure that it is happening. Also, we want to make sure that we're allowing teachers to go back and get higher degrees, because those higher degrees is going to help them elevate to positions within the district when we talk about growing our own. That is going to be very important. So as a superintendent, we have to lead that force and lead those efforts in every way possible. It starts with us. Continuing to have, when I attend professional development, I also enlist faculty and staff to attend professional development with me. I do not go in isolation. They go with me and we learn together, because it is a collaborative effort. It's about all of us learning as we begin to move our students to the next level. I take effort to ensure that the faculty and staff are motivated towards continuous learning. They have to be motivated that, that they are given the opportunity to be able to attend professional development, as well as the opportunity to go back to school for higher learning. I also encourage professional development attendance. I often bring well-known educators to the district. That has always been a key component of mine, because sometimes when you're in a district or a school that needs a huge turnaround or a massive turnaround, you have to bring the individuals here, because you have to really train so many. It's not about training one or two. It's about training the school. It's about training the individuals in the district. It's about training individuals in leadership overall. So it's sometimes important to bring those key well-known educators to the district to help train in the masses. And that is very important to me. I've been known to bring well-known educators to the district as a whole, to work with, to coach principals, to coach teachers, to work with individuals as well to help level them up. Also, in my last position, we also work with universities, whereas universities actually came and provided classes for higher ed on the school campuses. That was convenient for our faculty and staff. They were excited about it, but it not only helped teachers elevate, it also helped our non-certified staff as well. They were able to go back for their higher ed, because now they have an opportunity to go back and be teachers, because now the opportunity, really the higher ed opportunity is being brought to them. And so we partner with several universities where they provided classes and actually on our campuses for our educators, as well as our non-certified staff. Oh, some examples. Can I expound a little bit on some examples? I had written down some. District-led leadership development as well. Programs for certified and non-certified staff. I utilize individuals in the district who are really doing awesome things, and I bring them to the forefront, and they provide training as well on some of the things that we see in the district. That will also promote internal growth, because now you're administrator or the teacher next door to you, they're doing some awesome things, and we really respect that and we accept that. And so we want to put them and highlight them and bring them to the forefront to offer some training as well. Internal professional learning, as well as the International Society of Technology Education. If we're talking about innovativeness and innovative learning, we need to make sure that we have part of ISTE. ISTE actually offers a lot of training on new innovative ideas and how we can do it ourselves, as well as how we can do it without spending a lot of money. And so they offer those things, and we have to have opportunities to actually be a part of that and be members of that organization. The Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development is also key, because they also train administrators as well as training teachers. So it's almost across the board where everyone is being trained, not just one cohort, but several people are being trained at one time. Also utilize state level trainers. I use them for coaches. I use individuals at the state level with the national boards and different things like that to actually help and come coach our principals and our administrators up as well. So I try to really put up our hands on everything, but I always try to research exactly what the needs of our district are. And then as I begin to look at those needs, then I will actually equip and bring out and implement any training that is needed according to the data and what we find our needs are. Because sometimes if they just go to PD really frivolously and we don't know the needs, it really will not benefit the district or our students. And so we have to make sure we use data to make sure that we're aligning it that way.
Dr. Thompson, is there anything that you would like to tell us that our questions do not provide an opportunity for you to discuss with us?
Yes, I would. I would like to present a timeline. I'd like to present to you at this time a PowerPoint presentation that kind of outlines, thank you, Chairman. It will outline for you exactly what my entry plan will look like, as well as my transition plan, and moving forward. It would actually show you exactly what I would presume that we would do moving forward. And I will also address some of the things that were addressed or asked as well through questioning. The overall mission of Selma City School is to provide a safe and supportive teaching and learning environment through collaboration and partnerships of parents and the community. As a system, we are committed to being documented as a world-class learning institution that develops students in their academics and citizenship so they are prepared to compete successfully in a global society. The vision. The vision of Selma City School System is to be documented, trying to see it from here, as a world-class learning institution that develops students in academics and citizenship so they are prepared to compete successfully in a global society. Our mission would be the mission of the Selma City School System is to provide a safe and supportive teaching and learning environment through the collaboration and partnerships of parents and community that prepare students to be college and career ready for lifelong success in a global society. The core values, some of them are rigor and relevance for high quality teaching and learning, early learning, making continuous improvement, service learning, and integrity. The goal of education is not to increase the amount of knowledge, but to create the possibilities for a child to invent and discover, to create men and women who are capable of doing new things. My entry plan will consist of listening and learning, the entry plan itself. When we talk about the entry transition, the plan, as well as implementation of the plan. The goals. Goals that I have set for myself as superintendent, my ultimate goal is to ensure that students are nurtured, educated, and graduate as civic-minded individuals prepared to make ethical decisions. All students should leave their K-12 education feeling confident as competent communicators, skillful in problem solving, capable of creating, thinking, career-minded, and possessing knowledge of our global and multicultural society. Employees of the district main objective will be to strive for academic excellence by providing students with numerous learning opportunities as well as courses to accelerate their learning overall. One area that I will make sure that I cover is transparency, as I mentioned in some of the questioning.
communication, and dialogue. I will handle this or really oversee this through the entry phase, through shared awareness, through continuous improvement, through transparency and decision-making, through stakeholders updates. My role as superintendent will focus on transparency, communication, and continuous dialogue. I will accomplish this through the initial entry phase, shared awareness, continuous improvement, and the transparency component as we begin to move forward. The timetable. I will set the timetable up in phases. Phase 1 will be the entry phase. Hit the ground running, learning. Selma City Schools' strengths will be reviewed at that time, the needs, the challenges, and I assume, really, I think that would occur, the best time it would be from September to October, not wanting to prolong that process. Phase 2, transition. Achievement success as a team. Data analysis and team collaboration will be done during this time. Phase 3, planning, districts planning, and next steps. Strategic action plan, March 2018 through July 2018. Phase 4, implementation of innovative proposed strategies and progress monitoring, knowing that that is a top priority for the district, as we have also discussed today. So we have to make sure that we have things in place to make sure we adhere to that. And that really would be also planned throughout the process and trying to make sure that we're trying to look at it, a plan to implement it really from July 2018 moving forward. Phase 1 would consist of listening and learning sessions, conducted with internal staff on an individual or group basis with board members, district leadership teams, central office support staff, principals, employee groups, student advocacy groups, parents, community organizations. The data collected will be reviewed individually and collaboratively, working closely with district and campus leadership teams to conduct a comprehensive review of support services. District and campus initiatives and programs to evaluate level of effectiveness. In addition, student performance results and physical conditions will be examined to determine district strengths and areas of need of prompt actions. Phase 2 will consist of listening and learning of select internal and external partners and building a sound transition team. Group sessions will be held with the transition team members to gain a more in-depth view of district's culture and climate needs. Phase 3 will consist of compiling the collective efforts and feedback of the Selma City Schools transition team and reviewing and revising the organization's strategic plan if needed, as well as the action steps. Phase 4 will consist of implementation and progress monitoring of action plans, as well as anything that is in place that would guide us in student achievement in that process. The activities outlined in each phase may overlap as a result of need or importance. To ensure transparency, the superintendent or myself will keep the board and community updated on progress of all implemented strategies and procedures. The entry plan. Listening and learning will be very important. It will be taken through surveys, site visits, documents, review, analysis, meetings, and interviews of constituent groups. Listening, learning, leading, and synthesizing will consist of identified priorities, will be organized in alignment to the district strategic plan. Leading and progress monitoring will actually oversee the priorities and action steps aligned to the district's goals, and the strategic plan will be organized for accountability and progress monitoring. Listening and learning tool. A lot of times we do things from just the central office. That is not me as superintendent. I believe in really being a part of the community, being a part of the schools. I believe in being out there meeting, and I set up a tour with Thompson. And that's where we really would have meetings where we would actually receive feedback as a district to know exactly what is the community thinking about us, exactly what do they think our needs are, and actually providing information to them as they provide information to us as well. Some of the questions that will be proposed are, what are the strengths of Selma City Schools? What areas need improvement in Selma City Schools? As budgets remain challenging, what are the priorities of the district? How can we raise the bar of academics, access for all students? And what are suggestions that will assist in making Selma City Schools a world-class learning institution?
Supporting goals. And during initial entry, I will operate under the supporting goals while addressing the top priorities. Student experience would be one. Curriculum, instruction, and assessment would be another, as well as collaboration, communication, and involvement. I spoke of the benchmarks earlier on during my interview, but these will really be the guiding focus of exactly what would guide me and really keep me and my team on focus as far as what objectives we're having to constantly review to make sure we stay in alignment to what our initiatives are. The top priorities as discussed earlier. I really feel when we talk about producing measurable outcomes, we need to really pay attention to leading and progress monitoring. School improvement requires progress monitoring. You cannot do adequate school improvement or turnover or movement without monitoring. It just doesn't happen. Sometimes we put a lot of things in place, but we do not monitor what we do. It would be essential that we make sure that a good monitoring process is in place, and that will be done early on. When you think about the first priority and thinking about monitoring and data, I began to pull some of the data. And when you begin to look at the data, we know that we have areas that we know where it shows that the students are ready. And we have areas where it shows that the needs, that they are in need of improvement and that they're really close. What we have to really do is pay attention to, I always group the need and close together. That is very important for me. Because what I feel is that if a student is really close, they're still in need. They're still not ready. So we have to make sure we pay attention to that. What I propose when you're talking about math is making sure that we have adequate training and coaching on exactly how we instruct math. Sometimes we need to look at the curriculum, yes, but sometimes we need to look at how instruction is being delivered and make sure that it is being delivered in a way that the student, it actually aligns to the way the student is being assessed. So the first thing I would do is make sure we review how the student is being taught in alignment to how they are being assessed, and make sure that we understand that the student, we do not want to set the students up for failure, but we want to set the students up for success. It's very important that we do this. So when I looked at the data, that was very important to me, that we need to take a really keen look at exactly how instruction is happening in the classroom, and exactly what is happening and in alignment to exactly how the students are being assessed at the end of the year. And that needs to be really reviewed, not just look at data, but exactly dig down to the root cause of exactly why the data looks the way it looks. So I'm a firm believer in looking at the root cause. What is the root cause? What does it stem from? I look at attendance, I look at teacher attendance, I look at student attendance, and I say, okay, are they there to learn? Are they even in the classroom to learn? How many disciplinary infractions do we have that really align to the students not being there to take the assessment or to learn prior? Reading. Reading is an area that we have to make sure that goes across the content area. A lot of times we teach reading in isolation. With the reading scores, looking at them and really reviewing them, I begin to understand, okay, and even as I reviewed science and social studies, reading literacy has to be taught across all content areas in order to improve. Vocabulary is a key component to movement and delivery in student improvement. When I advance any district that I've worked in as well as school, because I've worked at the district level for the last few years, most of the time I put in a keen vocabulary initiative. Because a lot of times students need vocabulary. The assessments
you
are
control
given,
those
but the
lights
vocabulary
also?
is not
Yes,
in
that's
line
the light
with
for
what
the
you're
kill
being
'em,
taught.
so
So I
project
put
light
a
from the
key
projector to show
vocabulary
screen. What's that?
a
It's the
program,
projector light to
as
show
well
screen.
as
It's the
literacy
projector
across
itself,
all
not the light.
content areas.
Okay.
That is another area. A lot of times they're assessed on science words that they have never heard before. They do not even know how to cross-manage the science word or the social study terms or those different things. So vocabulary would be a key component that I would bring forward and make sure that that was in place, as well as student-centered learning environments. That is key. Students have to be able to talk to one another.
to be able to work with one another, to be able to learn from one another as well. Project-based learning is key to that. That would be another area that I would make sure that was in place as well. Project-based learning is key to be able to allow students to learn at that next level. They're now being assessed not just on yes and no answers. Our assessments are not outlined that way anymore. They're more so like projects. They have to think outside of the box. They have to think holistically. And in order to do that, we have to make sure we teach that way. So instruction would be something that I would really look at keenly to make sure that those types of instructional practices are in place when they look at the data and align it to the data. When I think about the grad rate, it is really good, you know, when you think about it compared across the nation, and as well as across the state. But I still always go to, and this is what I propose to my staff that work under me. Okay, we assessed 263, where are the other 33? What happened to them? Because we're here to educate all students. Yes, we have a good grad rate, but what is our dropout rate? And what happened to the other 33? Have we provided personalized learning to ensure that they are in some type of program that outlines to their needs? Were they able to do school in a different way? Were they provided trade? Were they services? What did we do to ensure? Did we make sure that we had GED programs all across the community that they could get to? Were those programs at a bus stop where they could catch a bus if they didn't have transportation to get there? That we made sure that those type of programs were in places where they had accessibility to get there. Making sure that all of these things were in place for them to have personalized learning and all of that, but also that we make sure that we provided means for them to be able to acquire that type of training and learning. So what happened to the other 33? And we need to also always be reminded that we are here to teach all students, not just some students, but we're here to teach all. When I looked at the disciplinary referrals, it was interesting that it was across a few schools. It really was. You remember, I was proposed the question during the interview, what was my view on discipline? Well, my view is that it does not fit, it's not the same across the board. And when I looked at the data, 816 disciplinary referrals, I would say most of it came from maybe 5 or 6 schools. It wasn't it was some from the entire district, but the bulk of them came from only a few schools. So that means that those schools really need some differentiated processes in place. Not just for the whole, looking at the district as a whole. What are we doing for those schools to ensure that their disciplinary referrals are at a lower level? Because we know as we begin to align the disciplinary referrals, we're also going to have to align it to their academics, and we're going to find that something is not aligned. If they have that many disciplinary referrals, then their academics is probably low as well. And we have to make sure that we're looking at it from that way. Priority 2, transparency, communication, and dialogue. This is very important. As we begin to look at the data and look at student achievement, if you will see, I was addressed in my question 4 areas: student achievement, budget, facilities, as well as overall quality of education. Those were the 4 main things that were asked of me in the questioning. And as I begin to always set my priorities, what I do, I make sure that any part of the priority or the needs or what is a concern for the district as a whole is part of any priority that I have outlined. So if you will look through the priority, you will see that I outline all 4 areas within the priority. And those areas are outlined here in a bold print, to make sure that it's not just a priority as it stands, but it's a priority that addresses all of the main things that we discussed during the interview process. And it should be in all 3 that same way. When you think of the second priority, transparency and communication, I think I've kind of elaborated on that quite a bit, but the key thing is that we have to make sure, as the board and superintendent, that we propose ourselves and introduce ourselves as a team, that to the school level as well as to the community, that they understand that we have reviewed our needs, and we know what our needs are. Now, how we address them, we have to address them collaboratively. That is going to be key as far as when you think about communication and dialogue. Priority 3, building collaboration, trust, and respect. As I mentioned, I have turned around many schools
as well as turned around and worked and built a lot of different models and initiatives in districts at the district level. That has been really what I'm about, a transformation specialist. And one thing that I found, the community will believe in you as long as they respect and trust us. And as long as we are transparent with what we're doing. We have to make sure that what we're doing is that we're introducing it in a transparent way and that they see exactly that there are no hidden rules. That we're stepping out, this is who we are as a district, this is what we have to do, and this is what our students have to do to move forward. Because we want to be a world-class institution. In order to be a world-class institution, we have to raise our scores. We have to at all levels. Moving to the transition plan. I have worked in many, in almost every, position at the central office level. I have been at the central office for about 15 years, working in all those different levels. One thing that I found was key was a transition plan. When you come in, you have to make sure that you have something in place that is going to guide the work. And that is really what the transition plan is all about. Is the superintendent's responsibility during the transition is what's going to be paramount to exactly what happens as we move forward. I always include a lot of external agencies. It is very important that they come in and sit at the table with me as well as the board members as we begin to transition. That is going to be key because as we begin to sit together, we're looking at our district from a holistic view, from the community or external eyesight as well as from our internal eyesight and view. So I really build a team, and this team is just a generic view. I would hope that as the board we work together, we will build this team even more and add more individuals and more agencies to this list as well. Building collaboration, trust, and respect is really key. And that is one thing that when we think about that, as you notice, I put it on several things. The board and trustees, commissioners will be part of that. Operating as a team, equity and excellence for all students, collaboratively building relationships, establishing meeting norms, and operating procedures. I'm not going to go over all of this because this is your strategic plan. Your strategic plan outlines exactly what needs to happen exactly for the next few years. It goes into 2019. And as we begin to work on this to 2019, we already have a roadmap. What we need to do now as a team is look at that roadmap and ensure that that roadmap is leading towards maximum student achievement. That's the key. Or is it just a nice book that is really written really well? Is it really fine-tuned enough to make sure that students are achieving and moving forward? And as I begin to review it, it is written very well. But what we need to do is make sure that we are really ensuring that every piece of it is really being implemented with fidelity. To make sure at every level that we're monitoring what exactly we've checked off. To make sure that if we checked it off as being done, that it has actually been done and that it is continually to be done. Goal 1 talks a lot about the facilities and safety. And then I have a focus area of exactly what we will look at. As superintendent, I would establish a culture of trust based on integrity and collaboration with all stakeholders to ensure all students earn a quality education and graduate ready for the college and career of their choice. Collaboration and teamwork will strengthen Selma City Schools. Goal 2 actually talks about the curriculum and instruction component, what I've already focused on. There's a focus area. And then as we begin to think about that, to ensure continuous improvement, it is important that the work being done is inspected for the expected results. A laser-like focus will be placed on monitoring results. Monitoring systems will be implemented to ensure physical responsibility and high levels of learning for all students. That would be key. Priority 3, as outlined in your strategic plan, actually highlights and talks about how we would really build best practices when we're talking about recruitment and employment, and exactly how that would be done. Inside of your booklet, you will see that I also outlined for you actual activities that will occur that I kind of came up and have written, or things that I have done that have proven to be really work. It is not on the slide, but it is in your booklet, as well as objectives that align to these strategic plan goals as well. That really leads to school improvement, maximum school improvement. Goal 5 talks about the overall operational focus and exactly what needs to happen as we begin to move forward. And that is going to be key as we begin to look at the physical management of the district. Exactly how are we going to actually fund the needs of the students, the needs of the district and the schools as we begin to help support our students to excel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask the board at this time?
Yes, I would. What are the next steps moving forward?
Well, actually, it's interesting you asked that because I wanted to take a poll from the board, if I'm in order, to move our decision or our call, to have a call board meeting on Thursday, along with our work session, to actually vote on the next superintendent. If everyone is okay with that? You okay? Okay. So next Thursday, we will have a work session and a call board meeting. We will notify the public as well to vote on the next superintendent.
What are some of the key priority areas that you would want me, if I was to walk in as superintendent, to handle or take a hold of immediately?
I'll pass that along to Ms. Wood. Ms. Wood, maybe answer that question. Would you like to come in? I'd just like each board member to let each board member come in.
My priority for the system is to improve our reading. It is absolutely too low. As we walked around and did our tour, you saw everybody was teaching, working hard, bell to bell, but for some reason there's a disconnect going on. So I want to prioritize that. And also, I want to get our finances under control because we discussed some things during lunch that have taken place. And we need to get that under control too, as much as we can, but a lot of damage has already been done, and we didn't have a choice. So, those are two areas, the financing and reading. Now, math is a priority too, but, if we can get the reading, a little better, then the math will kind of follow suit.
I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. I guess my main priority and my biggest focus would be the student achievement. And I think when we look at student achievement, one of the things that you said that really hit home with me is to make sure that the instruction is taught in a way that aligns with how the assessment is going to test them. And so when you look at that, the project-based learning I think is awesome. The literacy across all content areas, I think that's awesome. So that's my main focus is student achievement, but doing it in a way that really is going to reach our students and really meet their needs. And then I loved also the renovation cycle, and that goes back to finances, getting our finances in order and streamlined, and maybe we need to cut some fat so that we can be more resourceful and put our funding behind areas that directly impact the students, whether that's facilities, whether that's having more resources to promote these initiatives of project-based learning or focus schools, or however, the next superintendent determines that that's how we're going to move forward. And then aligning our priorities with the budget. Having our budget and our strategic plan really be working documents. So for me, those are the main priorities.
I guess my main priorities would be having some instructional rounds and audits conducted in Selma City so that we can get a true picture of what's taking place, and doing some program evaluations, evaluating what programs we have in place, make sure we don't have things duplicating, and those that we do have, are they being done to fidelity? And if they're not being done to fidelity, we need to ensure that they are, and that would help with our student achievement. And that parental involvement piece is very important because they're a very big piece of the puzzle. And if that piece of the puzzle is missing, we can beat our heads up against the wall all day long, but until we can get those parents on board to be a part of the educational process, it's null and void.
Well, I don't have anything left to say. They've asked all the good questions or stated what they need, but student achievement is definitely, and I'm big on parental involvement. I'm big on the community. I'm an elected official, and I have members of the community coming to me with concerns and needs, and they must be involved. I think it's going to play a big role in getting our school system in the direction that it needs to go. When we do get the parents really involved and on board with the students, it's going to make for a safer, I think, school environment, and student achievement, I think, will go up once we truly get the parents involved. I can't put enough emphasis on how much I think that's going to impact our school system.
And I guess for me, the physical buildings and facilities, and I know this might be a buzzword, but we really do need to consolidate, but we need a formalized plan, consolidation to cut back on some of the spending that we're doing in some of the schools. And when I say consolidation, I mean closing several schools to increase technology and expenses so that we can transfer those expenses over to the students in technology. And we also need to develop a retention plan and also a leadership training. We lose teachers, and we all know everyone has this issue, but we want to create a system or a school system that teachers will want to come teach. And also we want to nurture the talent that we have to be able to keep it. Because we continue to have turnover in teaching. You know, once you train a good teacher, then they move to other systems. So we want to create an environment that people want to come and be employed. I know that's a long wish list, but one of the things I want to say is that we're a very cohesive board. We work well together, and you would have our support. Any other questions?
That's all for me. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Thompson, we'd like to thank you for providing us with this detailed plan, and we want to, you definitely, well, all of the candidates over this week have made it